As I've evolved from my humble beginnings, I've had the opportunity to be in a lot of rooms. The more people I've met, the more stories I've learned. Stories of passion, trauma, triumph, and resilience. These are the stories that inspire us, that remind us of the human spirit. We can all learn from the untold stories in each of us, regardless of where you come from. And now, I'm excited to share these stories with you. This is EPEC Conversations. Hi, welcome to another episode of EPEC Conversations, where we talk to everyday people navigating extraordinary circumstances. And today I'm sitting here with a dear friend, Mac, who is joining us today for Foster Care Month. May is National Foster Care Month. We both share the experience of having navigated the foster care system. Mac is an alum of Pivotal, organization that we are partnering with for this episode. Pivotal is an organization that serves foster youth in the Bay Area, particularly in Santa Clara and San Mateo counties. And they help young people with coaching and additional supports as it pertains to their education and employment opportunities. So I'm happy to be partnering with Pivotal, as well as Equinix, who is our host organization that is hosting us here today to have this conversation. So I want to give a little bit of background on who Mac is. Mac, like I said, is a Pivotal alum. He is currently the Reentry Manager at the Asian Prisoner Support Committee. We're going to talk a lot about Mac's experience with the criminal justice system. He's a board member of the New Breath Foundation, which provides resources to support. Is it Asian American Pacific Islander? Is that the
Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander?
Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander. Okay, Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islanders with the hope and healing, keeping families together and building movements to dismantle dangerous myths and harmful policies. He's one of the first scholars on Pivotal's alumni board. And he comes from a family of refugees in Vietnam, which he will explain in just a moment here. Mac is a graduate of the UC Berkeley, okay, with honors and was the Chancellor's Award recipient. Congratulations. Mac has raised millions of dollars to support vulnerable populations across the state of California. Mac, welcome to the show. Y'all clap it up for Mac.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Adele. It's always great to see you. I think we have a certain vibe. We have a similar lived experience, and it's great energy.
Yeah, I'm so happy to have you here. I've actually been wanting to have this conversation with you for quite some time now. All right, so I'm really excited to have this conversation with you. I've actually been wanting to talk to you for quite some time because we're in a lot of similar communities, so we cross paths often. Pivotal has been where I met you. And it wasn't really until I was preparing for this conversation that I really got the full scope of who you are and how you came to be where you are. And you just have so many incredible intersectional layers, with being foster youth, with experience in the carceral system, with being first generation college graduate, much less from UC Berkeley. And so I think your perspective is hopeful. It gives people a lot of hope. It gives people who have come from where you have come from the opportunity to dream and imagine what's possible for them, for themselves. And so I thank you for being here and for sharing. And I want to first start with, as I start with everybody that I talk to, tell me about your childhood, your upbringing. What do you remember?
Yeah, put a timer on this to make sure I get it right. I'm the youngest of 10. We were refugees from Vietnam. We fled after the war. My dad fought. He'd been captured 3 times. He was tortured 3 times. He's been shot 5 times. He lived his whole life with an AK bullet in his back. The Vietnam War terrorized our family and a lot of Vietnamese families, right? So as America fled, we were left to our own devices. We got on a boat. My dad saved like 270 people. Every other boat that left Vietnam, they didn't make it. So, even one single day, there was a couple million people that died just from sinkings. And we got to the Philippines. It was like 40-something days on the ocean. And we applied for asylum and got to America. But, my dad, my family, my mother, everything all my brothers and sisters, I was the firstborn here. they didn't really unpack it, right? There was no such thing as like mental health support. You're just in survival mode. And the war took devastating effects on our family. I grew up in a house of violence. That's my earliest memories. Is I've never seen somebody, I've never seen a man beat a woman like I saw my dad, and his violence went everywhere. Being the youngest, I watched my brothers and sisters take the brunt of it, and when I got old enough, I got my fair share. And it just felt like normal. And I would say you don't see the haves and have-nots or the differences until you start entering, schools and making friends in the neighborhood, where I start to see like what a loving family really is. And you can't help as a child. It's hard to unwrap violence as a child, and that's what it was like. And I have older brothers, and they didn't take it too well either, and they started going in and out of institutions. And as the baby, I kind of followed. I looked up to my older brothers, and I followed them down that path. And for me, I was able to mimic my dad's violence. If boys would bully me and pick on me, and they had nice families, I wasn't gonna put up with that. And it was a weird time, because they pitted races against each other. Like the Vietnamese were coming in, taking jobs and stuff. So there was just all kinds of violence breaking out in the communities, and they didn't put us in the nicest neighborhood. So we were.
What time frame is this?
This is the late.
How old are you?
Late 80s, early 90s, right?
Right,
throughout the
Vietnam
80s.
War.
Yeah. So I'm 45 today. So yeah, and it was hard as a teenager, because I always knew I had potential, but our parents didn't have like generational educational knowledge or generational wealth or anything. So growing up trying to unpack like domestic violence and violence on kids and stuff, ACEs was what they call it.
Adverse childhood experiences.
Yeah. I mean, you feel guilt. You're like, I wish I could protect her, but I'm just a child myself, right? So, and you're like, I hate this man, but I love him at the same token, right? And physical violence, being the youngest of 10, my parents were a lot older, turned into like verbal abuse and mental torment. And I started following my brothers, and I would get myself in trouble a lot. And I'd be in and out of institutions. And
by institutions, you mean like juvenile hall?
Yeah, the boys' ranch, stuff of that nature. And
so you grew up here in San Jose. When you guys got here, you came to America, you settled in San Jose.
Yeah, we settled in San Jose. And one time I was in an institution, and my parents just they showed up, and they were like, just keep them. And it was crazy. I was supposed to be free, but I had to do my time as a juvenile, but like I'm a kid, so I have nowhere to go. And my parents just said they're done with me. And for the viewers out there, there's three types of like foster kids, right? There's, if you're young enough and something happens to your parents, normally they'll call them an orphan, they'll get adopted out. Their life trajectory and life outcomes tend to have higher promise, we'd say, than the other two, where, if your parents die at the age of like 13, 12, 14, or your parents go to jail or you're taken away. Those are the normal ones. And then the abandonment one's the third one. And that's the qualification I fit in of like being left in there. And it was a mind warp, because I'm the youngest of 10. So it took me a long time to come to terms. Like my brothers and sisters, like they were just trying to survive. So the older ones would try to settle. Everybody left this house at like 15 years old. So they would settle and then piggyback the younger ones into their housing and try to just make it. And God bless them somehow. Some of them have been successful. and I went into foster care. And
That's a really interesting point that you bring up, because you're right. I think when we think about the scope of foster care is like the foster to adopt. And I have a sister who was adopted. One of my biological sisters started off in foster care and then was adopted. And then there's the like fostered because of some sudden event, an abuse that occurs, violence that occurs, something that occurs that has them removed. And then the third one that you're talking about are literally young people who the parents are like, I don't want you.
yeah,
And that's a different kind of trauma.
Yeah, I see it because I've navigated around foster spaces for quite some time. I see foster that like, oh, my parents died. It's a whole different mentality versus, oh, my parents got locked up, or oh, I got abandoned, right? And you're very few do you see like I've been abandoned, and it took me years. Like I ended up, a coach of mine, like found God. He came and adopted me from an institution, from the Boys Ranch, and but I couldn't wrap my head around like, not having family and stuff like that. I knew I was talented. I've always known that. I'm a disability advocate, and I later on in life I got diagnosed, and we found a solution. But growing up with ADHD, PTSD, and ACEs, also now it's the new coin of the after incarceration syndrome that has happened, right? But yeah, I got adopted, and in the 90s, like it was a whole different ball game of foster care. So in the 90s, like the minute you turn 18, you're done.
That's it.
So like I knew that day was coming.
And not
even
just
like
the 90s, the 2000s,
2000s
too. That
too.
came into play.
And
I graduated 09. I think it was 2010 was when we got into foster
and I
care.
remember, and I was like, oh shit, I'm gonna be homeless. Like this is crazy. And there was a little bit of a chance. My probation officer was like, he came to my high school and he was like, hey, you can stay on longer. And I, with surveillance and discipline, I was like, could you still violate me and put me back in jail? Like, yeah. I'm like, I don't want to stay on longer. Like that, this is just things you have to do to survive. And when that day got closer, I never really talked about it because I was excelling in sports and everything. I never really talked about it, but that fear of like being unhoused again, because I had been kicked out of my parents and been like homelessness and stuff like that. And that fear is so great that I was like, I'll just wild out and enter the system again. And, I had not really captured my thought process of fighting off addiction. Today I'm moving on to 12 years of sobriety. I have 11 something now, so I'm very proud of that. But at the time, I knew I was gonna go back into the throes of it.
So let's talk about that really quickly. Let's get into, so you go to the ranch, which is an institution here for young people in the South Bay area. I know several people who have been to the ranch.
Yeah.
It's always felt like this faraway place, like the ranch. The people kind of talk about it, but the folks who have been at the ranch kind of know what that experience is more intimately. I'm curious to know, at what point did you recognize all of these culminating mental health challenges? So when did you get diagnosed with PTSD and ADHD? And
it sucks to say, with a lot of the accolades I have in my life, like it's all luck. So after, foster care and the beginning of this, what we say, life sentence on an installment plan, I would be in and out, moving up the underworld, we'd say, not caring.
In and out of jail.
Yes.
Okay.
And I got out this last run, and it was odd because I had promised myself, like, if I ever make it to the top of the underworld, I'm gonna stop.
Mhm.
And I made it to the top. And you know, addiction's funny because you can't hold on to anything. I couldn't hold on to my race cars, my race motorcycles, all the wealth and the Rolexes, all that went away. And I finally quit. I was like, I've proved it to myself. I can't make it.
Wait a minute. There's a big jump here. So we started off at the ranch, and now you got Rolexes and race cars. So what? So help me understand. So what was the lifestyle that you were in after the ranch? So you said you had a family.
I was in and out. Like I had tried. You know, having the mark of a felony is really tough. My boys had made up some. They had come up through the underworld, and we opened a business, a furniture store up north, and I went and tried as my addictions were building.
Okay.
And when my mom passed away, I felt, you know, as a young man, I was like, damn, I got the least time with her. I lost it. And I was like, and you know, with capitalism kind of degrades you as a man, right?
Mm.
The business wasn't doing as well. It's so much to make it out here or survive. And it just took for the camel's back to break. My mom passing and us having that complex relations. And when that happened, I was like, it in my relationships. Then it was like I can't provide. I can't even provide for myself. And I'm trying, and it wasn't working. And something snapped, and I entered the underworld again. And
how old are you at this point?
28 at that point.
Okay, so you're nearing
29.
30.
Yeah. And I entered the underworld, and I think enough times passed, but I moved to the top. I mean, I'm a distributor, and I trafficked for years, and my territory is like Salinas all the way to Oregon, and just the amount of narcotics that moved through me. I think 2012, 2011, I think my movement was like 10 million.
Wow.
How many families did I hurt? How many kids went into foster care because of the narcotics I moved? How many domestic violence situations or murders? And it wasn't great, but it's difficult for a formerly incarcerated to say like, hey, you know, back then it's like work for $8 an hour and get laughed at, you know, can't even afford an apartment in San Jose. And just all this unpacked trauma that was so repressed and addictions at its throes. Like I had to do what I had to do to support the habit of creating the lifestyle. And yeah, but that's long-winded. And now we're back. I got out this last time, and only by chance. With my sister's help, God bless my sisters and niece. Like they had put some roots down by this time, and I said, hey, you know, I need some help. Because there was two options. I can go back to the friends I know, and I love them, and they'll do anything for me. But they do what they do, and I knew I needed to be away from that temptation. And I just told my sister, like, hey, if you'll support me, I wanna try. You know, at the time we were now fully grown-ups because my mom had passed. She was the matriarch of the family. I was like, really need your help. And
how much older is your sister from you? I know you're the baby of 10.
This is on film, and there's 9 of them, so I can't remember everything, right? So God dang, she's up there, right?
Okay.
Yeah, I'm wondering. She's in her 50s something, right?
Okay,
I'm 45, and me and her are really close. And like I said, they had it worse than me. I don't know how they made it. Like the fact that they can just do that immigrant, refugee, just keep on swimming until you make it, you know? And I want a better life for them. And my sister stepped up, and she helped me find a place and supported me. And I was like, you know, as someone was formerly incarcerated, I was like, well, not like I'm gonna get a job. Like, who the hell's hiring? So I was like, the next best thing is let me go get some financial aid from college. And during that time, I met a psychiatrist who specialized in children, who had been working with children and understands ADHD, understands post-traumatic stress disorder, and wasn't so scared because I had met other psychiatrists. I was like, hey, yo, I think I have ADHD. I know I have ADHD.
Mhm.
I know that PTSD affects it, generalized anxiety affects it. And they were like, this is a dead conversation. We will not help you. You are a former addict. We will not give you. I was like, all right, whatever. And then that lady got cycled out of the place that I was seeking help. This was the first time, this was 2014, I was seeking therapy. I was like, I need to unpack all this stuff. And she got cycled out by chance by the county. And this new guy came in and I did the same speech to him. I was like, hey, I'm about to enter school again. I don't really have much options. Like, I know I have ADHD. I was wondering if you can help. You know, is there a way? And I was like, you know, if we work together for 6 months and you trust me, because a lot of times that fear of addiction or fear of abuse is overpowering to like, people need this support.
Right.
And he was like, oh, we could start now. Like, I'll know if you're gonna abuse it because you'll just keep asking to up the ante. And we went through that whole process. And men don't talk about this, but that's why I'm pretty open and I advocate for like mental health support, because that changed my life. When I found a solution, a medication that worked for me, I went from, you know, studying my butt off and getting bad grades, cheating and somehow still getting bad grades, to a straight A student. And I just caught fire. Like the way I put it in my poems is the house of my knowledge used to be locked, and I didn't know when I can enter that house. With some support and mental, like with the right medication, I was able to open the door to my house of knowledge and be able to pull information for testing. So, and I've studied this a lot, and my brain can't see the difference between physical violence and test taking. It's the same fight or flight neurotransmitter. And that neurotransmitter has nothing to do with memory.
Right, right.
So being accommodated, I went to a straight A student.
So going back, so you going to live with your sister to say, hey, I need to like
She got me.
and
She helped me find a place to rent. We rented a room. At first, we went to a place. We found a place. This is 2014, so this is before COVID. We found a place, a Vietnamese house on the Bautang Mall. It's a Vietnamese newspaper in San Jose. It was for $300. And I was like, cool. So we got in there.
Can't find that today.
I know. We got in there and I was like, I was scared. So I waited. And in about a couple of days in, I was like, hey, once a month, some people with guns are going to come in and just walk into my room. And he was like, well, you could move out tomorrow. I was like, oh, right. And I was scared because like, I was like, man, how are we going to get a place with parole and all this stuff, you know? And I went to my therapist that I was seeing and I was like, well, parole's gonna be 3 years, you know, let's just do homeless or just violate me and put me in until this is over, because like, I can't deal with the trauma of like looking for a place, like considering I come through foster care and then getting booted out because you keep coming. So my therapist was like, all right, I'll talk to your parole officer. And I think there could have been done more, but like, she was like, I just want to search it once. And the next place I found, they came, but nobody was home. And that's how I kept my place. So a lot of the stuff I'm here is just my luck that the family wasn't home. They still don't know.
Yeah.
I see them, I go to them every Vietnamese New Year's and bring a bag of rice, you know, but only by chance, right? And the chance that I found a therapist that was stepping up to my side, because like she knew I was trying to do better and maybe saw the potential in me.
Yeah, there's something that you're speaking to that I think is really important, and I really want you to describe this for folks who might be listening, and that is that transition between street life and getting on the path to like your ultimate purpose or destiny. When I worked with young people at Pivotal who I was coaching, particularly those who were still in that life, it was like they knew they wanted more for themselves, but the steps felt so arduous, so big, right, to overcome. And what you're describing is kind of this pull between like my old friends and my old life and the fast money and like the no the path of righteousness, if you will, right, or purpose, right, whatever your ultimate destiny is. So can you describe what that transition is like mentally, but also socially? Like, what did you have to put in place? What did you have to do to make sure that you can make that transition successfully, that you could be available to receive mental health support, that you could be available to take your medication or ask for help? What is that? Can you put us in your shoes? Describe what that transition is like.
It's hard. You know, it's little thorns, right? I remember dating and they're like, oh, you take the bus, you know, those little thorns start to hurt, or you're like, oh, you have a job offer, but like it's a 2-hour bus ride to get there. It's like impossible. And those little thorns, it's extremely difficult. But also the fear of like, I lived for 4 years while I was going to community college, not knowing if I'm gonna have a place. Like, it's insane, right? To have that kind of, for a foster kid to have that, to be able to stay laser focused. I was working on my sobriety. By that point, I had been like 18, 19 months sober. So I was just starting and really rooting myself in a life of not using mind altering, unprescribed medications, right? And I, it, I would say that people that are formerly incarcerated, it's tough because you're like, all right, so I'm gonna spill my beans and then you're gonna deny me and then try to say like, it's not because I'm formerly incarcerated, you're not hiring me and you know I'm well skilled. It's tough. So those mistakes, and then people say your past doesn't define you, and it shouldn't, but the criminal background check still says the past will define you 20, 30, 40 years later. You can't work as a mailman. You can't work at government jobs for the most part. You might have some tokenism going on, but for the most part, those things, I think, harm people trying to re-enter society. There's no, you pass go and you can start over again, right? Like I tell most people, I don't think people know, but most foster kids end up formerly incarcerated. It's just the way it is. These are the true numbers.
Yeah.
And it doesn't make me any different, but those are the things that are extremely difficult. But people that have been incarcerated are similar to those that survived the Titanic. We have a commonality amongst each other and understanding that we've made it to the other side, but also we have this tendency to find positivity and hope pretty fast, right? And I would always be able to tell myself, like, I gotta at least try. Because for the longest, for many years, I was like, well, I gotta get a job. Like, why am I gonna do this? Who's hiring here? We can go to this company that we're at right now and be like, how many formerly incarcerated you hire? It's zero. We know it. There it is. So your past does define you, but others' past don't define them. Let's just forget about slavery and imperialism. Let's forget about all that. Redlining. Let's forget about that. But you, Miss Black Lady, will never forget what you did. And that's a thorn that keeps biting, right? And
so how do you find your way out of that? Like for you, you reached out for help, and like, what's the kind of the mental gymnastics to find your way out of that? Because there's somebody who's gonna see this. There's a young brother that was in your shoes is gonna watch this, and they're looking for a path out. So what would you say you did to like kind of overcome that?
I chose education. There's not, for formerly incarcerated, there's not many routes, but I'm not saying education is the only way. I wanted to understand instant self-gratification from poverty-stricken childhoods. I wanted to understand the sociology behind why probability occurs within my communities. And I wanted an educational path. The simplest answer is because it would give me time, time to heal, time to work on myself. And there are some career paths popping open for others. And I think the mental gymnastics is that I do a lot of my work with men. I'm a masculine man, and I try to break those stigmas to say, like, I chose mental health support, therapy, abstinence because I wanted to unpack the life that I've had, right? And I speak that to young people all the time, and it's still stigmatized in our communities, and it's especially in the Southeast Asian community, the API, NH.
Definitely in the Black community.
We just don't talk about that,
Right.
and I've had to explain to professors and other people. I'm like, you want me to do therapy? Y'all are safer that I do therapy. Y'all kids are safer. Like, you don't want me out there unpacked, not packed, not working on this. It should be an entitlement, right, for poor people and people of color and vulnerable populations to have therapy. And
yeah,
that thing
because of all that's projected and imposed on us
on a daily basis.
Just by virtue of being born.
On a daily basis,
yeah.
right? As a sociologist, like, I didn't choose to be a refugee family. I didn't choose to not being able to assimilate. These are difficult navigations within our particular phenomenon of a society. And those are how I impacted. And I would say I didn't know I went to San Jose City College. What a great school. I loved being an older student because I had the effort mentality of, like, I might as well try, because, like, what are they gonna do? Like, I might as well try for everything. And I absorbed it in my sobriety. I took classes on addiction. And I fell in love with communication and sociology. And what great professors I had there. I started in remedial everything, going through juvenile incarceration and foster care. We are very unique in our education. I was so far behind. I was pretty much in ESL when I got to community college, and fractions in math. And it's hard to stay the course knowing you got 6 classes to take before you're eligible to even transfer in English, right? So I fell in love with it, and I fell in love with telling my story. It was a healing process for me. And I linked up with a counselor named Julio at San Jose City College, and he broke some rules because I'm an older foster. He was like, he just bent him and said, nah, like, and I always believed, like, it was, like, foster care never ends. It's still, to this day, my relationships with my family members, they're alive. Like, a lot of people think of foster care and they think we're just by ourselves, like we're just an orphan kid. It normally goes to orphan, right? And I'm like, no, I have sisters and brothers.
Yeah.
We have a complex, and I love them, and it is what it is, right? And it's like, it's an educational game, but he let me in Guardian Scholars there. And I got some support, and he linked me up with Pivotal. And I came into Pivotal, and I was like, oh, these people are way too nice. You know how it is? You're just like, I don't trust Priya. I don't trust any of them.
Too nice.
Why are they nice? What's wrong? This is a cult. They're going to bring me to church on a Sunday, or some weird stuff's going to happen, right? And I learned a lot of my game because I'm what you call a game changer. And we'll get into the stuff I've done. I normally don't sit there and spiel about the greatness I've done, but I've changed lives. And but Pivotal, I was like, yo, I'm older. And they're like, oh, that's cool. And I was like, what? What do you mean? And I saw what real support could be like. I was like, I don't even have food. And they're like, thank you for letting us know that. And they just stocked the whole room full of food. And they'd see me. I kept coming, jacking all of it, filling up my backpack. I was like, I need food. Like, screw you. I'm at community college. I don't really have a job. Like, I'm just jacking. They're like, we're going to keep refilling. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
And they took heed to a lot of things. Like, I helped create the name Pivotal. I'm on the advisory board, and I saw what real support could be like. And I was like, yo, I was at school between 8 in the morning to 8 p.m. because like that's how remedial my stuff was. And that's how, as I was learning my learning disorder and figuring out the right medications, like I was struggling hard at first to read, remember, and retention. And I was like, I need more tutoring. And I was like, Pivotal, like, I need help. I need one-on-one because like you have to wait in line at the tutoring center. And I'm a foster kid. I'm like, I ain't got time to wait in line.
Right.
They got tired of like,
shit to do.
yeah, but they also got tired of keep helping me. I was like, I still don't get it.
Right,
So
right.
Pivotal just said, oh, that sounds cool. Let's get you a personal, and they just got everybody personal tutors.
Yeah.
You know, my laptop's broke. Oh yeah, let's fix that.
Yeah.
And that's where I saw organizations that give to because they want you to thrive. I've seen other organizations give because they just want you to survive or they want to pat you on the head. Giving to thrive is a model that I move forward into my future endeavors because it's important to me. It's
1,000,000%.
important to me. And give you the chronological. I was choosing. I was excelling at community college, and I applied to a bunch of schools, and I applied to Berkeley, and I applied to Ivy League, and I got in. I got into Columbia. They called me and said, "We really want you. We think you're a game changer. You can come to New York." And they have the best spiel in the world. They're like, "There's 14 people in your class, dude." Like, and I saw it because I knew I had started making moves to change things and systems at community college, and I was like, I can go to a small school like Columbia and really kick up some dust and make some and get myself a job. And I'm going to preface this. I was choosing between Columbia and Berkeley, and at the time, fate stepped in, and I had met my daughter. This is 2017. That was the first time I met her. I had a girlfriend. She was a year younger than me. I was like 15. She was 14, and I had been in the throes of incarceration, and I found out she was pregnant, and I take ownership. Like I wish I was in a position to help Evangeline. I wish I was in a position to support her, and she was asking for it, and I was in the throes of
The life.
and I got incarcerated, and I was in foster care, and the mother of my child, someone took a shotgun and blew her head off. And when I had got out into foster care and then out, I had a chance to meet up with my daughter at like 2, 3 years old, but I knew I was entering that life, and I was like, I don't think I want to expose her. And I was a coward of a man. I was scared. I was a child myself. But God willing, I had a chance to meet her, and with the unpacking of therapy and everything, and taking ownership and responsibility, I was able to meet her and say, hey, I'm your biological father, and I'm sorry everything that has happened. And she had just found out, when she turned 18, she was adopted and stuff like that.
So she was adopted after her mother was killed?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Or right before her mother was killed. I was incarcerated, her mother put her for adoption, and then her mother got murdered. So it was a very extreme way it was hard for me to find her. I had called the adoption, I don't know, the state office, and they just laughed at me. I was like, because I'm not on paperwork anywhere, and God willing, I was able to run into her, and it really sealed my decision between Columbia and Berkeley, and I decided to go to Berkeley.
To maintain a relationship with your daughter.
I had a chance to having a relationship with my daughter. We had met that summer. I was making a decision, and the coaching at Pivotal and a bunch of the Pivotal were really trying to support me to this because I was pretty open with them. I was like, I'm really having a hard time. Columbia could be game changing for me. They're small. Their endowments, how their money works, it's like not publicly. I could get a real career, right, out of just the network. You're a classmate with a sultan. Like, it's insanity at those Ivy Leagues, right? But I chose Berkeley, and
you think it was a white choice?
I mean, yeah, I don't look back any further. You know, it's funny because my daughter found out she was adopted, you know, at 18. So she needed time to heal and unpack. So she wasn't ready to talk to me much when I was at Berkeley anyway. So afterwards, we created a blossoming relationship, and I'm a grandpa today. But it was tough, right? But there are, and I will get into that when I show you where I hope to be. I was able to do some real critical change at Berkeley. I created multiple programs, Navigating Cal, Navigate to Cal, college prep program, supporting the application process. At Berkeley, I created for vulnerable populations how to navigate an institution that has ties to white supremacy and how to really empower students. The students that I've helped, none of them are in debt. Average win for scholarships is $25,000, $35,000 each student. They're all going off to grad school now. They all give me a call and be like, "Oh my God, Mac, I created that legacy. A friend of mine overtook it and I moved on." But at my time at Berkeley, I came in there and some of the research I'm a published researcher. My publications have outcomes. Berkeley, the beauty of Berkeley sociology department, it's pretty much a PhD program. It is so rigorous, but the research I published, I did a public peer comparison on age restriction for foster programs throughout the UC, and found out that there was some with age. I was able to take the age restriction down at Berkeley, and now there's been a couple hundred older foster youth and that program, right?
Wow, let's clap it up for that. That's incredible. I think that's huge, you know, talking about paying it forward and taking your experience. Because I was telling somebody, actually, I think it was Priya. I was talking to Priya the other day, and I was like, you know, there's like two different kinds of. So first of all, the brain is going on like 5 different directions right now. So we're gonna get those synapses to calm down. So the first thing is, I went to graduate school as a foster youth, and I noticed that at that level, it was very, 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 very difficult to get my program funded from anywhere.
Absolutely.
Because a lot of people have this impression that because you got your bachelor's already, that like your foster youth problems are over. But I'm like, no, like they follow you, right? Like my life circumstances, even though I have all this social capital now, it hasn't translated in a way that like foster youth are already stomaching the financial burdens. We have a lot of catching up to do when we go into our adult lives. And so people forget that as you advance in education.
Right.
So I ran into that barrier of like, how do I fund any of these programs? As a former foster youth. But I say that to say, from that experience and a multitude of other experiences combined, you know, it has me thinking about the kinds of foster youth that come out on the other side. And some foster youth are kind of crippled by their experiences and they're kind of in a gridlock, right? Rightfully so. The brain can only handle so much. The body can only handle so much. And then there are other foster youth who kind of carry the fight and the burden and the plight of the foster care experience on their back. And I think you're one of those people.
And it's a tough, you know, Mohammed said it, God bless his name. I act as the tip of the spear. And in that tip, sometimes that tip gets beat up. And I've done that. At Berkeley, I did a research project showcasing that there was barriers stopping POC, persons of colors, from obtaining disability support. And I wreaked havoc. When I got to Berkeley, there was 700 students. Out of the 700 students that were DSP, public peer comparison, they should have easily 5,000 to 7,000, right? UCLA, other schools. So I was able to prove all this. And it started with 700. By the time I graduated, there was 5,000. At this point, there's well over 10,000. So I corrected some wrongs. And you know what? Some of the best things I was able to do, and I look back, I stopped 5,000 students from dropping out. I did that. And that, for me, we were saying, some of us are fighters, and there are what we've called very few high functioning persons with lived experience.
Yeah, yeah.
Right. And the thing is that we hear it, the topics of like, hey, and I'll get to this later, but we should nourish persons that are high functioning with lived experience. And we don't as a society, as organizations. Like,
we just assume they can handle everything.
But also,
yeah,
my future roles in this life and my goals is that I want to penetrate organizations and be a part of the director board and be a part of any org. I believe there's only so many of us with lived experience that are high functioning, and we can change any tech organization. We could change a lot, but getting in that door is extremely difficult. Eventually, I wouldn't pass coming back to Pivotal as an executive or something, because the second sight, as W.D. Du Bois says, you can't gain second sight unless you have that lived experience.
Yeah.
And then when you quantify that with high functionality, it becomes a force. And some of the stuff I did at Berkeley was moving. As much as they say it's a progressive school, the bureaucracy is bureaucracy. Bureaucracy runs through every organization, and to be able to kick down doors. The funny thing is, why I'm in love with Pivotal and why I always come back and support their work is that when I was transferring, Berkeley had let Pivotal know that they weren't going to accept me because I was too old. Pivotal called over, tried to do what we call a warm handoff in our field.
Direct service space.
Yeah, and they were like, nah, he's hella too old. Like, we want babies, right? And I remember Priya, and I remember my coach, they just solemnly, like, it almost like you could see their eyes watering, because I was one of their more spectacular scholars, and they're like, you're going to Berkeley and this is it, but you'll never leave us. Like, fuck it. You can come down here for support at Pivotal, And I was like, oh, we'll see about that. And by the time I got there, it was like 3 months until they took down that age restriction. I was like, nah, dude, we're not playing this no more. Like, I give no Fs, but to be the tip of the spear, you make a lot of enemies. And I have ruffled feathers, but I look back at the generations I've helped, and those feathers were worthy of being ruffled.
Why do you feel like you assume that responsibility in your life today? Do you feel like you're like reconciling harm that maybe you've caused to communities? Is it like, I've lived through this and I know how hard it is for me and I want to make it less difficult for others? What's the motivation behind why you carry that responsibility?
There's multiple motivations, right? I live every day is that, you know what? I can't make up for the past transgressions. All I can do is it's a step within what I do in sobriety of like, I'm here to be of service, and of that service. And for me, as someone who faces and deals with addiction, thinking outside of myself is the only way. Because if you leave it to my own discretion, then selfish and self-centered behaviors of like over drinking, over using drugs is what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
So one of our things is to always try to be of service to others, people maybe suffering addiction, and throughout my life in general. On top of that, there's this fire that's in me, and you know what, Del, I see it in you, and you're more reserved than me, and you're more put together. You're more put together than me, and you know what? I would attribute some of it as being a Black woman. You can't take on certain things because you'll be considered bitter or this and that. Where this vitriol. One of my idols said it, right? It's I will not accept the things that I will change the things I cannot accept, and I fight for the younger Mac, right? He had talent. you know, all those years, like I cried out for help and I just couldn't get it. I remember telling a teacher in high school, I was like, yeah, my dad whoops the dog shit out of my mom.
Mm.
And he was like, you know, don't tell me that. And he just walked away. I was like, all right, cool. I was like, I'll move on, right? You know, and it's a vitriol. It's forces my hand to do something. But I think it's my natural state to help others. And when I help a young person, when I help people, I see that younger version of myself. I see that kid, you know, that turned off the lights with his brother when his dad was beating his mom because like that kept you safe as a child in a bedroom. It's freaking crazy. But I remember that. I remember like listening to the thumps and walk, you know, wondering if my drunk dad was gonna enter my room.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like it's the beatings were one thing, but it's the moments before it. And I do it. I do it. And you know what? It makes sense of some of this life, right? And it's tough because Del, me and you, I help people so good. Like this is all I'm built to do this. This comes with ease for me. But we don't have generational wealth. Like the hard stuff is like navigating my life.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm on this notion, and I could be wrong. I'm like, I want to put my roots down. I don't want to be kicked out of a place no more.
Yeah.
I don't have mommy and daddy or this or that and be like, let me live at your house indefinitely, right? And
Yeah.
inherit it. It's not going to happen. It's not
And
in our
that burden,
cards.
it just keeps going and
It's
going.
not in the cards for us, but we
Yeah.
don't navigate that. And I'm trying to position myself to put myself in a position to buy a house, right? And it's like, holy shit,
Yeah.
we don't have the help.
Yeah.
And it's like, I'm in this, and I feel like a foster kid again. I'm like, I feel like I'm in this by myself again.
Yeah.
You're navigating a corporation and you're in this by yourself again. And for me, foster care never ends. And you know what? Maybe one of the bigger pushes is to say, like, there's only so many high functioning persons with lived experience, undocumented persons that are extremely successful to help people. Former foster, formerly incarcerated person, disability advocates that are high functioning. We need organizations to push for that support because it's a lifetime support. But and I say this because of like anytime Pivotal asks me, or I do a lot of speaking engagements, so I'm always mentioning Pivotal, and I'm like, don't look at the numbers, because if you want to look at Pivotal's numbers, Mac here, I've helped hundreds of thousands of people raise millions of dollars, change systems at the system level. You can't quantify that by Pivotal numbers, right? And that's the importance of really standing behind those that are making changes like you. And for me, it's like, I don't know, but I know that if I can't find, uh, uh, when I say like buy a house or this and that, I'm saying security and safety.
Yeah.
That's the only word that
struggle with the
matters to
same
me.
thing. I struggle with the same thing.
I want a place to know I'm not going to get kicked out of, man.
Yeah, you want something to call your own, that you can ground in, that
I know it's
secure.
not 4,000 or something where I'm just gonna one day I'll lose it.
Yeah.
Like I've lost everything else in this life.
Yeah.
And it's probably gonna be the thing that kills me, because I refuse to give up to say like me as my positionality and where I was born and what the circumstances were shall never receive security and safety and a place of peace of mind. And I refuse to accept that. And I'll fight. I'll try. But man, it'd be nice with some help, man. You know what I mean? It's like, you know?
I think a lot about my experience as an adult person, and that terminology, high functioning, is so interesting and resonates really deeply because I use the same term, because I'm like, you know, it is a very small population.
Yes.
And it is hard. And the more you ascend, the harder it gets. You know what I mean? And so for me, like the greatest lever, and I talked about this in an earlier conversation, has been like connecting with people. So I find real truth, like I find friends everywhere. And I think growing up in foster care has contributed to that. My ability, moving around and having to read people quick and know what's what. Like I think I connect well with people because of my experience in foster care, ironically. But it makes me think about some of these other things, contextual things that you're talking about, that like an adult person wants and desires and at a certain age achieves, right? Home ownership,
Yeah.
right? Being able to invest in the ways that you want to invest, being able to travel the way that you want to travel and not feel like you're compromising your livelihood at the same time. And I think for me, there are some things that I've been able to do and I do them really well. And then there are other things that should seem really simple that I'm like, it's only because I haven't had this knowledge. Like, it's a huge knowledge gap that I have to constantly be teaching myself. And the process of securing the knowledge can be exhausting. Like, the process of literally researching is exhausting. The process of, like, to your point, not having the help to buy the house or put the down payment on whatever you need, or like that burden stays with you regardless of how long you were, like, you know, regardless of how old you are, if you've been in foster care for an extended period of time, or if you were formerly incarcerated. Those are the two populations. So that resonates in a real way. So my question to you is, how do you reconcile that now? Like, how do you cope with that? How do you procure the help that you need whenever you need help? Like, how do you deal with those like real things? And the other thing, the other side to that is, in what ways has that has your experience, like, how does that show up for you today? So for example, I lived in a townhome in Fremont. Beautiful home. I've always had really nice apartments. I've been pretty fortunate post care to have always had some place to be. But I remember in the townhome that I lived in Fremont, I had my bed on I was supposed to get a bed
Bed frame.
A bed frame, thank you. I was like, why can't I figure this out? I was supposed to get a bed frame. And I knew for sure I would be moving from there again. So I never got the bed frame.
Absolutely not.
And so the bed literally
On
just
the
the
floor.
box spring and the mattress just stayed. And I was just like, if I get the bed frame, then that means I'm here. And I know I'm not gonna be here. So I'm not even gonna invest the time and the energy, because guess who's gonna have to move it? Guess who's gonna have to pay for it to be moved? Guess who's gonna have to store it? Guess who's it's gonna be me.
And there's nobody else, and you don't wanna, you really find out your friends when you're like, hey, can I leave some stuff? Then you find out you ain't got many friends or family. You can't leave nothing anywhere, right? You just gotta, what you got is what you got, and it sucks.
So like, even finding security created a burden for me. You know what I mean? So I couldn't get the bed frame.
It keeps going more.
Yeah.
It goes indefinitely, right? So somebody wrote an article about the duffel bag or the trash bag. You know, a lot of us fosters move around with trash bags. And then as you come up a little, it becomes duffel bags that you find or whatever is donated. It has a zipper now instead of a trash bag. And now I'm a plastic bin guy, and it's a nice one. But I like, most of my closet space is these plastic bins, knowing I gotta move. And it's a life, but it's tough because you play this game of like, I like my coffee maker. I like nice coffee in the morning. But that thing's another burden that I know that it lies on my shoulder, and my shoulders only. And you don't want to be testing friends and be like, can you hold my coffee maker?
That's good.
It sucks. It's a game, and it's like, I feel bad for like my wife, right? Because it's like, she deserves more and I can't provide, right? And it's a mental torment to know that, like, this is driving me so much to find security for myself, and it might not happen. I don't, and there's this oddity to think that, Dale, you represent yourself a certain way, and I know I hold myself a certain way where it doesn't look like we need help. But I don't think it's our duty to go under our dignity and be like, look, I'm, and I have to cry. I try to remain a pretty positive, happy person, but in that, it looks like we're done. And I'm fully incarcerated. There's no job that's guaranteed. And like, affording security means I just got to pay. I can't even go for a loan because, like, the job's not guaranteed.
Right.
I got to pay something off. And that's impossible in this area,
Or
in any area.
Capital,
Yes, right? So it's
It just keeps
this
going.
weird paradigm that we're it's a quagmire that
Yeah.
we're in. And that brings me up to like where I'm at today. And so I ended up I oversee everything reentry at Asian Prisoner Support Committee. At Asian Prisoner Support Committee, we do anti-deportation, advocacy, policy work. We do some educational support for those that are incarcerated and reentry support. So we do this because the model myth minority thinks that AANHPI don't have issues with mass incarceration, mental health, and healing from the traumas of imperialism. And it's a passion because there's no programs. We're one of the few in the nation that, we help everybody, but we do focus on AANHPI communities that have dealt with mass incarceration. For the most part, Southeast Asian coming from war-torn countries have a hard time assimilating, find themselves incarcerated, are always thrown into the most devastated areas of the hood, deserts, and we believe in supporting them coming home. And that's some of the work I do. I definitely want to raise awareness to that. It's one of the areas that are most underfunded. And I'm on the board for New Breath Foundation. We are a grassroots philanthropy seed funder. So what we do is we support grassroots organizations that do the work for the AANHPI and beyond communities. And what we're trying to create is trust-based philanthropy. I think a lot of philanthropy dollars are spent on bureaucracy and reporting and blah, blah, blah. Trust-based philanthropy says, we see you, we know the work you're doing, and we ask, what is your North Star? If you had the resources, what can you do? And the reason why New Breath Foundation and Asian Prisoner Support Committee, we exist and we move is because this model myth minority and the otherization of Asians in America, Pacific Islander Native Hawaiians in America, is devastating to our communities. In San Jose, I think the high school graduation attainment rate of the Vietnamese community is under 60%, and it's unknown, unspoken of. All the first generation, first, second, third wave, many of them have no education and they need support. The mental health resources for our community are well underserved. After the Stop Asian Hate movement that has started, we believe that there has been some API organizations that believe a solution to stop Asian hate is a carceral state to lock up. And for me, stop Asian hate doesn't mean lock up every Black guy in Oakland. We've done that before, and and we're starting to move towards that wave now. And at New Breath, we are, a lot of times we do a lot of educational work. It's 20 cents on every $100 goes to organizations directly supporting the healing and cultural competent healing for AANHPI, and 20 cents out of every $100. Our populations need the support too, but we're minimized and we're othered, and with the model myth minority, but the disparities between Asians that have and Asians that don't have is so huge that people don't realize the disparities.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there's a very high number of like my Cambodian brothers and sisters who live in poverty, and we need support. And for me, my personal goals, I definitely want to move into philanthropy and change how philanthropy works. Asian Prisoner Support Committee, pretty much, I would say, is the first organization that focuses on this stuff. New Breath is the first philanthropy organization that's really trust-based philanthropy for our sectors. And I really want to see the change in philanthropy. I really want to see the shift in companies and donors to say, like,
How people do business in philanthropy.
how do we change the paradigm of how philanthropy works? And I want to see bigger organizations support smaller organizations. I'll put it to you this way. The way New Breath works is that we spot organizations that do the great work, and we're like, yo, we want to support what you're doing. You've been doing it. You've been voluntarily doing it. You're doing a great job. Now, what can you do if we put some real might behind it, some funding, with support, with support creating your organization? That's the movement I want to create, like Pivotal and Asian Prisoner Support Committee. I want to see in my lifetime Pivotal create their own roots. I'm done with Pivotal looking for a place to live or a place to be. Like, Pivotal needs a building, and I want to see that happen. Mm-hmm. I want to see Asian Prisoner Support Committee work in a building that's theirs, because these organizations are proven. No more of this, you need to report, give us your numbers. Pivotal has proven. Yeah. Just on what I've done.
Yeah, the philanthropy game is just,
now it's time.
It's a whole other thing.
But that, it's, as I try to distract myself from never having security, I want to join. And that also supporting organizations to put persons with lived experiences in positions of power. Yeah. Those are the areas that I want to focus in. I know what I'm capable of when put in a position of power. And when I have some support, and I've talked to organizations, some of the movement we've done is like trying to get former incarcerated meaningful employment. Yeah. And I've talked to some HRs, and they're just like, they're so far behind, they're not capable, as their colleagues. And I'm like, if you're looking at this there's two lenses. You want to look at it through capitalism, then just hire white people whose parents went to college and their parents went to college. That is the best solution for your bottom line and making profit. Yeah. But at the end of the day, we're all interconnected. You could talk about profits all you want. You cannot hide from these freeways and homelessness and violence and the criminalization of our people affects everybody. Yeah. When acts of desperation occur. So looking at it from the lens of like most profitable versus, do I want to make a social impact in this society? And I think hopefully one day, and I'll put it out there, consulting for big corporations as this, because the second sight, you can't learn that in school. Yeah. You cannot learn these things. And for me in boardrooms, it's important, right, to be able to make those changes from positions that have the power to do so.
Yeah, I tell my brother, I talk a lot about the carceral system and how it's directly impacted my entire family. Both of my parents were formerly incarcerated. All of my siblings have, at some point, almost all of them, have at some point been incarcerated or have been in touch with the criminal justice system. And when last year, we welcomed two of my brothers home, one in January, one in November. So the beginning of the year and the end of the year. And it was my responsibility to get them home, right? Yeah. So I had to drive, rent the car, rent the space, fly. One of my brothers is incarcerated in Ohio. We did the whole thing. And I told both of them when they got home, like, I don't care how long you've been down, like, don't let anybody tell you that your experience is invalid because you were in prison. Because if any one of us had to go in prison, we would be relying on you for the knowledge that you know, right? And so when you come back into this world, when you re-enter into this society, don't walk around with your head down. You hold your head up high. You ask the questions that you need to ask. You connect with the people that you need to connect with. You're an expert of your experience. I don't care how much you think you missed out here, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And that messaging is so important, to your point. So the advocacy that you're doing at New Breath Foundation and all the work that you're doing with folks who are re-entering is so important, because you could tell somebody to walk the straight and narrow, but if there's no pathway to economic mobility, then I'm gonna just keep doing what I've been doing, right? Like,
It's acts of desperation,
Yeah.
right? And money people, unless they're put in a position,
right,
they won't understand what Dell will do for her family.
Mhm.
And Dell will do anything. And they've just never been down that path. When you're abandoned and you don't feel like people love you, it's hard to, move on and stuff. But I get hope by helping others. I get hope by making critical change, systematic change that like the younger Mac might have a chance out there in life. That foster care is moving in the right direction, and I'm here to push it further. One of the things I loved about Pivotal is that when I saw you, I don't know if you remember, I was like, oh, she works here and she's one of us. Oh, I can respect this org now. Because that thought is not normal. Oh, Pivotal wants to come to me and needs my opinion about the name? Oh, wow. Organizations that lead with, persons with lived experience, it's rare.
Yeah, it's so true.
At Asian Prisoner Support Committee, 60% or more, don't quote me, have lived experience that work at Asian Prisoner Support Committee.
It's a game changer, because then you know how to serve your population better too, right? Like,
it's second nature. It's a second sight. This is easy.
Right.
Again, buying a house. The other stuff is like, this is so trivial. Like, I'm never gonna figure this one out. Like, you need me to give you more money to borrow money? Like, what is going on here? Right? And those are the trivial things. And like, for me, I hope this conversation sparks like furthering pushing the bar.
Yeah.
That, also furthering changing philanthropy for me is like, I want Pivotal to work with Asian Prisoner Support Committee because I want us to heavy hitters in organizations to share knowledge, share donors, share it. Philanthropy has this situation where it's like, I'm going to hold all my donors. And New Breath, we don't hold donors. We seed organizations. And after the organization, we're like, here's the donor that gave to you. So here, why don't you can try to create this relationship.
Yeah.
And we should be working together in philanthropy to say, like, Red Cross, I hope to pull in and say, we need your help to fund and show us how to get major funding for Pivotal, Asian Prisoner Support Committee, New Breath. New Breath is created by advocates, so we know organizations we're funding.
Right.
And we have the knowledge of which ones we know have the potential to do the game changing.
Right. So I have two more questions, and then we're gonna wrap this up.
Yes.
So the first question is, you talk about being basically a child of war, a refugee. We are in a very, very, very tenuous time in like global history. We got stuff going on in Sudan. You got the stuff going on in Haiti, Gaza, all over the world. Do you have you've given us some context on what it's like to navigate the stressors? You've highlighted how it's impacted your father. You've talked about formerly incarcerated people who haven't assimilated well, who are also refugees. Can you, at this day and age, when you think about all the stuff that's going on globally between Israel, Gaza, and all these other all these other countries that are experiencing war and warlike situations, what is just give us some perspective on how the everyday person should be thinking about this scenario. I think we typically think about it from a corporate standpoint when you think about just like America and how they're doing this whole thing. But just your opinion alone, separate from any organization that you might represent here today, what do you want people to know about young people who are victims of war?
Um, I would start by saying, for some reason, every war has, American imperialism has its fingerprint all over, and it's an oddity. And I think there's responsibilities for America to intervene and act. And I would say too, is that you don't throw out the sink with the dirty water. If you're looking for some specific people that have done some damage, bombing a whole area like Gaza is an insane technique of using, and it's going to create generational trauma. And for me personally, I believe APSC stands with this. We don't believe in indoor prisons, nor do we believe in outdoor prisons. If you're not free to leave, that's a prison. And those things, prisons have an effect on humans, and it's hard to come back. I don't think you'll ever come back. I was caged like an animal, worse than an animal. I didn't see the sun for so long. I could see my veins through my skin. This took a toll where, sunsets aren't beautiful anymore to me. Like, I feel dull in this life. There's a gray hue. And that's what caging people and war can do. And I try to navigate that every day. And we're creating a new generation of this with the wars and the neoliberalism politics that are occurring. And there, again, it's this violence is not an answer. To more violence doesn't answer more violence. It's going to repeat itself.
All right. And then thank you for that. And then on the note of forgiveness and self-forgiveness, have you been able to forgive yourself for some of the things that you're regretful you've done in your past? And if so, what was your path to self-forgiveness?
Yeah, being in these positions, you are often reminded though. But yeah, you're never completely healed, but I've done, I believe I've been in constant nonstop therapy since 2014. So it's a decade now, right? Yeah, wow. And that's every week.
I was gonna say,
That's
how
every
frequently
week.
are you going to
It's
therapy?
every week. Oh, at first, for the first couple of years, it was twice a week.
Okay.
And only by chance.
And like, did your
Only by
healthcare cover
chance.
that? Like, because I know a lot of people.
I was on Medi-Cal.
And Medi-Cal covered.
It was
therapy
only
twice
by
a week.
chance.
Oh wow.
It was only no, they didn't. She just snuck me in.
Mm.
She was a great therapist. I hope she sees this. The work we did at the beginning was so critical for my life. And I'm so loud and rambunctious that they kept running in the back because they thought her name was Missy. And I appreciate you. Thank you for what you've done. I'm so loud that they kept running thinking I'm like beating her up. And they're like, what is going on in this back room? She's like, leave. He's doing therapy.
Right.
And it was twice a week for the first couple of years. It helps a lot. And you know what is what we call is I do a living amends. So it's very strange that it looks like a psychopath just wanting to help somebody, and they're like, "This is a trap," right? I'm like, I got you, and I've honed it better now. But my living amends is paying it forward, and I do that. And I think even Priya doesn't know why I do it. Like she couldn't get why I help so many people that I would show up just to help. And I can't change things, but I can make it right. And, just like you, I know your story, and I've had a lot of loved ones that don't exist now because of harm. And I can't make up for some of that stuff for them. I can't even say sorry to them. But what I can do is show in my life that I acknowledge it, and I pay it forward, right? And that makes me feel a little bit better about things that, and for me, keeping out of myself is so important, and helping others,
Yeah. And then on the note of forgiveness, have you been able to forgive other people that have put you and who didn't protect you or make sure that you...
I'll say this to, the foster kids out there. There's a yearning for us to build family relations. There's some things that were unfinished. And it's taken me a long time in this life to know, like, I hope they forgive me too. I was never perfect. And part of my therapy was to forgive, but also I think you just had a young foster in here, and I'm excited for her future, but I see the struggle that's going to happen in the future for her, because some of the work I had to do was say, like, this relationship ends and there's no further need for me to see certain people ever again. It is, and that's it.
Knowing when to let it go.
Yeah, there's certain people I haven't seen that I probably won't see until I die, and that's okay. And I want the best for them, and I love you, and this and that. And there's some I will see, and it took a long time to navigate that, because I'm just that kid who I wanted the attaboy from my dad, and I never got it. Some of the ways I achieved because I searched for that attaboy, and I'll never get it. It doesn't matter if it comes from Priya, how great I've done. It didn't come from the person that mattered. And it's not going to happen. And that's okay. That's okay, right? Because that a lot of us fosters just want that attaboy. I just want to be, I want to be cherished. I want to be felt like I'm meeting something, and part of it is helping others, right? And that's, for me, it's to set those boundaries is so key.
So part of your path to forgiveness has actually been taking care of yourself, is what it sounds like. Severing relationships, setting boundaries, and then giving back through your service work.
I wouldn't say severing relationships. I would say setting the boundaries. I'm there. They need my kidney. They need my arm, like my blood. Like, I'll be there. But the boundary says, like, and probably I never to say, like, I don't want this to sound like I'm all good myself, right? Mac, I push for change. I compare myself to Venom. Too much of me is toxic, but just enough, and I'll save cancer, man. I'll tell you, So I want to say it's both ways, and sometimes war, trauma can't be healed. And you have to find a way. And that's okay today. It's okay to say, hey, you know what? I love you from afar, and that's cool, man, or this and that. And you know what? We don't all have to be in hugging all the time, right? And this adulting thing's crazy. Me and you, we got a long trek ahead of us, right? This is wild, and you know what? I know it when I see it in your eyes. Hopefully me and you can make some changes where I like to say it like this, right? With organizations, this is what I do at New Breath. What would they do if they had not to think about that? What would pivotal New Breath Asian Prisoner Support Committee, what if we could take worrying about rent off their table? What can they really accomplish? What if I can tell Priya, like, hey, you know what? You don't have to worry about fundraising anymore. We got an endowment set up. You said you want to cover 100 foster a year. Now, what can Bria, what can Pivotal do? What can New Breath do? Like here, what we're trying to do now is an endowment. What we're trying to do now is to say, we want continuous funding. We want this to be generational, right? We want to do multicultural support. We want to bring together African Americans, the Latinx community, the AANHPI, and do this support. So, and I say this for you, what could Dell do if we eliminated the things she's not good at or doesn't have the generational wealth to take care of? And that's a simple question I ask myself all the time. Like, Mac, what can you really do? Because me and you are here fumbling over rent and baseboards for a bed. Like, I'm trying to focus on, like, I'm trying to change systematic issues around, model myth minorities, API, and stopping the carceral state to be the solution for Asian hate. I don't think, these are the things and it's crazy, but what a crazy life. And I really appreciate you, because I normally don't pull out and give my story. But this is really fun.
Yeah.
Do this with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you for being here. Can we clap it up for Mac to share her story? These are the conversations that are so important to elevate at EPEC Conversations, and why I started this this podcast. And my favorite thing to do with EPEC Conversations is EPEC Live, which is a live experience, because you can't fake this texture. You know what I mean? So thank you again for being here. Thank you to everybody who will see this. Thank you for everybody in the room. A good one.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.